What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Anime Decision. Your one statistic painting animation. I probably just screwed that up. I don't care. Welcome to Cowabunga Calvacade. It's the marathon that you've all been waiting for. At least I assume that, considering that the intro has like 40 views or something. Anywho, today we are finally starting the reviews, and like I said yesterday in my update video, today we are going through all the series. All of them. We're going through the original, which is this video, and then we have something I'll say at the very end, the 03 show, the 2012 show, and Rise, all 5 of them. I'm not going to talk about the anime because it's technically not even a show because it's like 1 or 2 episodes, so yeah, this is how it's going to go. So unfortunately, like I said, I can't go as in-depth as I want to because of a lack of time, but I'll try my best to keep this content as interesting as possible regardless. As you guys can see, I am in full live action mode this time because since I have a new phone now, I shouldn't have audio problems. I can go back to my original way of reviewing this stuff. So I'll scoot over this way. The picture will show up right about here. There we go. And now we can begin. So I'm going to start, as always, by talking about the voice cast. And some of these I may not know very well, but I will do my best to praise those who deserve praising. So first up, we have Cam Clark as Leonardo. He's pretty good. Not my favorite Leonardo, but he's still great. Barry Gordon is a good Donatello. Rob Paulson's Raphael is one of the best in the entire show, arguably the funniest character. Next to Townsend Coleman's Michelangelo. My favorite of these 4 87 turtles because of his Surfer Dude voice and how close he is to his other incarnations, while the other ones are a little bit basic. I'll get more into that later. Then there's Renee Jacobs as April O'Neil. She's really good, even though her character is unfortunately damsel in distress in this iteration. Peter Renaday is a good Splinter. Pat Fraley is Krang. Classic. Then, of course, the late, great James Avery, also known as Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, for 110 episodes was the voice of Shredder, and he is an iconic Shredder. Yes, he's not a very intimidating, scary Shredder, but he's a very memorable, goofy, funny Shredder. And that voice, I mean, you can never top that voice. At least in this incarnation. Then there's Jennifer Darling as Irma. She's okay, though I'm not a fan of the character at all. Then, for the final 20 episodes of the show, Shredder was then voiced by Jim Cummings. Yes, the same guy who voices Winnie the Pooh. He does a really good job. Tony J is Dreg. He's fine, even though the villain himself kind of sucks. I'll get into that later. And then, who else is here? Bumper Robinson as Carter's fine. Greg Berg as Bebop is really good. And of course, Cam Clark is really good as Rocksteady. And yeah, I think that's about all the notable ones. So, yeah, that's the voice cast. Pretty solid, pretty good. And of course, the first versions of these characters to be on screen. Yes, the characters technically came from a comic book first, but you can argue without this series, they wouldn't be as iconic as they are. So what are my personal thoughts on the show as someone who didn't grow up with it and who's a 2000s kid and just rewatched it recently? It's good, it's fun, but I do prefer other incarnations more, but that's because I'm a storytelling kind of guy. I like the storytelling and the dark seriousness of the comic books, so this I definitely find more than a little silly. So, like I said, I can't really go in-depth as much as I want to with this, so instead, I'm just going to read off my little written review from my Facebook page, which I will leave in the description for those of you that want to check it out. And here's my written review. Very dated and pretty silly, but a lot of fun to watch, and without it, the TMNT wouldn't be the icons they are today. Obviously. The voice acting is good, especially from Cam Clark and Rob Paulson. The writing is hilarious, the dialogue is enjoyably cheesy, the villains are pretty good, the animation, while cheap, is still well done. Yeah, I will fully admit that. This animation is definitely very cheap, but it's cheap in a way that kind of works and makes sense. I mean, this is from the 80s after all. What else? The runtime of 22 minutes per episode is well handled for the most part. and it has a pretty high entertainment value and just how fun it is to watch. Yeah, this is a very fun series to watch, especially nowadays, comparing it to all the later incarnations. However, again, I'm a storytelling kind of guy, and this doesn't really have much of a story. Like, it has some of a story and a basic premise, but outside of that, it's kind of just bonkers. Not my favorite of the TMNT shows, but still a very solid start that made the Heroes in a Half Shell into pop culture icons, and I can entirely see why it was such a massive hit back then. Definitely recommended, but be aware that the last few seasons, aka the Red Sky Saga as the fans have dubbed it, are not very good, so temper expectations when you reach seasons 8 through 10, and since it is such a long-running series, it hurts the rewatch value a bit. Yeah, this is 10 seasons. Rewatching the entire series is a arduous task. Heck, I couldn't rewatch the entire series. I have seen the whole series, I just couldn't rewatch all of it in time to make this review. I've been able to watch the first 3 or 4 seasons. So, yeah. And I guess I should comment a little bit on why I don't like the Red Sky Saga, despite the fact that it tries to be more dark and serious and story-driven. It's just too jarring. Like, compared to all these 7 episodes of, silliness and not taking itself too seriously that makes it fun to watch, this final 3-season arc takes itself too seriously, tries way too hard to replicate the 90s movie, and it just does not work. And Dreg as a villain is... I'm sorry, he's bad. I was not a fan of Dreg in this version. He's just not interesting to me. He's boring, but, the voice is pretty good, but the villain itself is boring. It's something we've seen 1,000 times before. Like, it screamed to me, try to keep this show alive as much as possible so we can keep selling toys. And yes, I know that this show was written around the toys, whereas nowadays it's usually the other way around. But because of that, I don't know. I just feel like the final 3 seasons really let down a lot of it. And that is a huge bummer, because the rest of the show is a lot of fun. It's just very lighthearted and silly, and since I'm a storytelling kind of guy, it doesn't quite hold up for me. That's just my personal opinion, though. This has a legion of fans, and it was a huge hit back then. So, yeah. I do enjoy it. It's just not my personal thing. I grew up on later incarnations, so having this goofy, silly one that doesn't really have much of an overarching story, it doesn't really quite jive with me. It's still a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend Turtles fans go see it, especially since, according to a recent little thing from SDCC, Nickelodeon got the rights to it, so they're going to be re-airing episodes again. Get out of here. Sorry about that. And it's just a really fun time, a fun watch. It's dated and extremely silly, but I do still enjoy it. And the designs are iconic. No matter how I feel about the characters themselves, the designs are iconic. So, yeah. Overall, I think I'm going to give the final verdict for TMNT 1987 a full final verdict of a solid 7 out of 10. I feel like 7 is more than fair, considering the fact that it is dated and very silly by today's standards. But by the standards back then, I'm sure it was something amazing. But as it is nowadays, it's very good, but it's far from perfect. It's a really fun, entertaining watch, and I do still recommend it, but just skip the final 3 seasons. In my opinion, they're pretty bad. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on TMNT 1987 without going too in-depth because, again, I really can't. But I have a good time with this show every time I watch it, and I personally quite enjoy it. It's just not the masterpiece and far from my favorite incarnation of this series. We'll get there when we get there. So, that's going to conclude this review. Thank you guys for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm sorry I can't go super in-depth with these, but I promise when we get to the movies, I will try to go a bit more analytical. And not to mention, since I am doing this in live action instead of screen recorder as usual, I'm not going to be able to make as long of videos as I usually do. So, yep. What would follow after this? A piece of crap, but a very enjoyable piece of crap. So, I'll see you guys next time when we tackle the so bad it's good hilarity garbage that is Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation. Why do I think it's enjoyably bad? Well, I'll tell you in the next video. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. Cowabunga, dudes!